It was a day that would be etched forever in the memory of kingdoms. A day when the mighty Euphrates River, the source of life and power for civilizations stretching back thousands of years, began to retreat. The sun beat down relentlessly, a blazing orb in a cloudless sky, casting long shadows over the sprawling lands of Mesopotamia. Farmers stood dumbfounded in their fields as the river's surface, once a shimmering highway of water and life, started to recede. Fishermen who had cast their nets for generations found themselves staring at dry earth where the fish should have swum. This was no ordinary drought. It was a slow, agonizing withdrawal of a force that had nourished entire empires. Far away, in grand palaces carved from stone and adorned with gold, kings stood silent and pale, their robes heavy in the desert heat, their eyes wide with disbelief. They watched from towering terraces as the Euphrates, once a roaring, unstoppable force, began to expose its secrets. These were kings whose power was anchored by the river's bounty, the rulers of Babylon, Ur, and the mighty Assyrian realms, whose armies and culture had shaped the known world. To see the Euphrates betray its sacred duty was not just terrifying, it was a sign whispered by prophets and scribes for generations, spoken of in sacred scrolls and revered texts. Among the murmurs of priests and the fear in the eyes of the people was an ancient prophecy, one that traced its origins even beyond their time. The holy prophet Muhammad, along with other revered prophets across centuries, had foretold a time when the Euphrates would dry, exposing hidden treasures, gold not merely earthly wealth, but sacred relics tied to divine will. This prophecy spoke of a warning, a herald of great trials, and a reckoning to come. The kings listened closely to these words, understanding that the river's withdrawal was no natural disaster, but a cosmic message writ in sand and stone. As the river's waters pulled back, the exposed riverbed began to shimmer with a strange and haunting glow. Flecks of gold sparkled beneath the harsh sun, scattered like forgotten gems on the cracked earth. The sight ignited a frenzy of awe and fear among the people. Some believed these were gifts from the gods, treasures meant to be claimed. Others whispered that the gold was cursed, guarded by ancient forces that would punish any who dared take it. The kings themselves were torn between greed and reverence. Should they seize the treasures and expand their empires, or respect the warnings whispered in the wind? The villagers and travelers who lived by the river told stories that chilled the spine. At twilight, long after the sun had dipped below the horizon, shadows were seen moving across the dry riverbed, ghostly figures that flickered between light and darkness. Some spoke of voices riding on the desert breeze, voices that chanted prayers in ancient tongues, prayers of protection and doom. Children were warned not to play near the exposed sands, lest they vanish like those who had dared venture too close. The kings, despite their power and wisdom, could do little but watch. Dreams haunted their sleep, visions of fire and flood, of cities crumbling into dust, of armies swallowed by shadows. The priests interpreted these visions as divine warnings, signs that the drying Euphrates was the beginning of a great upheaval. It was said the river's retreat would unleash forces older than mankind itself, forces that had been locked away beneath the waters since the dawn of civilization. Scholars from distant lands came to study the phenomenon, but even their most advanced knowledge faltered before the mystery. The river's drying defied natural explanation. The gold fragments were unlike any known treasure, and strange symbols etched into stones emerged alongside them. Symbols that scholars claimed could be part of a sacred language lost to time. Treasure hunters were drawn by greed and curiosity alike, but many disappeared without a trace, swallowed by the secrets that the river seemed determined to keep. The drying of the Euphrates was not simply a chapter in history. It was a bridge between worlds, between the tangible and the spiritual, the past and the future. The river, which had once carried the hopes and dreams of empires, now seemed to be delivering a message, a final test for those who would listen. Today, the echoes of that ancient day resonate more loudly than ever. The Euphrates is drying once again. Modern satellite images reveal its retreating waters, exposing new fragments of gold and mystery. The old prophecies stir anew in the hearts of those who remember. Local villagers speak in hushed voices about shadows along the riverbed, about voices on the wind, about nights when the sand seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. Social media buzzes with images and theories. Some call it a miracle, others a warning. What will rise from the dust this time? What ancient powers lie dormant beneath the cracked bed of the Euphrates, waiting for the moment to return? Are we witnessing the fulfillment of prophecies foretold by the greatest prophets, or are we on the brink of a catastrophe beyond imagination? The story of the drying Euphrates is far from over. It is a tale of mystery, faith, fear, and wonder. It reminds us that beneath the surface of our world, there are secrets older than history itself, waiting to be uncovered. And when they are, nothing will ever be the same. If you feel your heart quicken with curiosity, if the call of ancient mysteries pulls you closer, then join us. Like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to follow this incredible journey into the unknown. Together, we will uncover the secrets beneath the drying Euphrates, and perhaps, understand the fate written in its sands. The day the Euphrates began to dry was unlike any other in the history of ancient Mesopotamia. For generations, this river had been the lifeblood of empires, a shimmering artery carrying water, trade, and prosperity across the vast, sun-baked lands. But on that fateful day, the river's surface, usually wide and steady, began to retreat, at first almost imperceptibly, as if hesitant to abandon its course, then faster, revealing cracks in the earth where water should have been. Villagers gathered along the banks, their eyes wide with disbelief and growing dread. Fishermen, who had cast their nets for as long as their ancestors could remember, now found nothing but dry, dusty sand beneath their feet. What made this moment even more unimaginable was what lay beneath the drying riverbed. As the waters receded, flecks of gold began to glimmer beneath the sun's harsh light, glimmers that seemed almost too bright, too deliberate to be natural. These weren't mere pebbles or fragments, but shining relics that spoke of something far older, far more sacred than anyone dared imagine. The elders whispered of ancient prophecies, warnings etched in time and scripture, foretelling that when the Euphrates revealed its hidden treasures, it would mark a turning point for humanity. The holy texts, including those revered by the Prophet Muhammad and other prophets before him, describe the Euphrates as a sacred boundary, a river carrying more than just water. It carried the fate of nations, a thread weaving together the past, present, and future. The revelation of gold was not merely material wealth. It was a sign, a divine message encrypted in metal and stone. It was as if the river itself was speaking after centuries of silence, urging humanity to listen, to awaken. The kings who ruled these lands watched with a mixture of awe and fear. They understood that these golden relics were not just treasures, but symbols of power and warning. Should they seize them and claim dominance? Or should they respect the prophecy and tread carefully? This dilemma weighed heavily on their shoulders. Priests performed rituals and sacrifices, trying to appease the gods they believed were behind the river's retreat. But the gold continued to shine, almost mocking their prayers, challenging the very essence of their faith. As word spread, curiosity and greed mingled dangerously. Traders, treasure hunters, and scholars flocked to the drying river, each hoping to unlock its secrets. Yet many returned empty-handed, and some never returned at all, swallowed by the mysteries that clung to the cracked earth like shadows. The deeper one ventured, the more palpable the sense of something ancient and restless became. It was as if the river was a gatekeeper, revealing only pieces of its story, holding the rest hidden beneath layers of dust and time. This wasn't just a river drying. It was history unveiling itself in fragments of gold and silence, an invitation and a warning intertwined. Those flecks of gold held a power that went beyond material wealth. They carried a story, a secret that had waited millennia to be uncovered, and with it, the promise of revelation and perhaps ruin. The drying of the Euphrates was the beginning of something far greater than anyone could imagine. The moment the Euphrates began to shrink, it was as if the world itself held its breath. For countless generations, this river had been more than just water. It was the pulse of ancient civilizations, the lifeline that nourished empires, sustained crops, and carried the hopes of entire peoples. But that day, something unimaginable happened. The great river, once wide and powerful, started to pull back its waters, slowly at first, almost reluctantly, revealing the cracked, thirsty earth beneath. Villagers and farmers, who had relied on its flow, looked on in disbelief and growing fear. The fishing nets hung useless, and the fertile fields began to wither under the unforgiving sun. Then, beneath the dry, broken bed, something extraordinary glinted, a shimmer of gold, scattered across the sand like stars fallen from the heavens. These weren't just specks. They were fragments of something ancient, mysterious, and sacred. The elders whispered of prophecies passed down from the earliest times, spoken by the prophets themselves, including the holy prophet Muhammad, who foretold a time when the Euphrates would dry, revealing hidden treasures that were not merely riches but messages from the divine. The gold was a sign, a warning wrapped in beauty and danger, hinting at changes that would shake the very foundations of the world. This revelation shook the kings who ruled the lands along the river. From the palaces of Babylon to the temples of Ur, rulers watched anxiously as their once mighty river bled secrets into the open air. These kings knew that the gold was no ordinary wealth. It was sacred, tied to divine judgment and ancient pacts. Their priests urged caution, performing rituals and sacrifices to appease the gods. But the golden fragments kept catching the light, dazzling and defying their prayers. It was as if the river itself was alive, choosing what to reveal, and when testing the resolve of those who dared to witness its secrets. News of the river's drying and the mysterious gold spread quickly. Scholars, treasure hunters, and merchants hurried to the exposed riverbed, drawn by the promise of unimaginable wealth and ancient wisdom. But the river was not an easy prize. Many who ventured too far into the drying sands never returned, swallowed by shadows or lost in the labyrinth of time that seemed to cling to the golden relics. The closer people got to the treasure, the heavier the air seemed to grow, thick with an eerie sense of something ancient watching, waiting. The drying Euphrates was more than a natural disaster. It was a moment when the past reached out to the present, when history peeled back its layers to reveal truths long buried. Those flecks of gold were not just metal. They were pieces of a story, fragments of a mystery that had waited thousands of years to be uncovered. They whispered of a world on the brink of transformation, a divine message carved in the dust. This was only the beginning of a revelation that would ripple through time, forever changing how humanity saw the river that once gave life, and now demanded attention. The drying Euphrates had spoken, and the world could no longer turn away. As the Euphrates River's waters pulled away, exposing the cracked earth beneath, something far stranger began to unfold, something that no one could easily explain. The kings, priests, and villagers alike watched not only the river's retreat, but also the eerie shadows that seemed to gather along its dry banks. These were no ordinary shadows, flickering and shifting like restless spirits that danced just beyond the edge of sight. At dusk, when the sun dipped low and the world grew quiet, these ghostly figures appeared to move silently across the exposed riverbed, as if guarding the golden secrets buried beneath the sands. The people who lived by the Euphrates spoke in hushed tones of these mysterious apparitions. Some claimed to have seen shapes that resembled ancient warriors, clad in armor long rusted away by time, standing watch over the treasures revealed by the retreating waters. Others whispered of robed figures chanting in languages no one alive could understand. Voices carried by the desert wind that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. These voices were said to call out prayers, warnings, and sometimes curses, echoes of a forgotten past that refused to stay silent. Kings, despite their power and might, found themselves haunted by these shadows. They gathered their wisest priests and seers to interpret the signs. What did these moving shapes mean? Were they protectors, spirits sent by the gods to guard sacred relics? Or were they warnings, ominous reminders of a fate worse than drought or famine? Night after night, the kings watched the shadows from their palace windows, unable to look away even as fear gnawed at their hearts. Their dreams were invaded by the same figures, dark silhouettes standing by the river, their eyes glowing with otherworldly fire. These visions left the rulers restless and anxious, their grip on power shaken by forces they could neither control nor understand. The priests tried to calm the people with rituals, burning incense and chanting prayers meant to appease the spirits. But the shadows only seemed to grow bolder. Travelers passing near the river reported chills down their spines, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Some who dared to venture too close to the golden fragments spoke of sudden coldness, as if the life had been sucked from the air around them. A few even claimed that unseen hands tried to pull them into the depths of the dry riverbed, disappearing into the darkness only to reappear shaken and silent. Stories spread quickly, growing more terrifying with each retelling. Children were warned never to stray near the river at night, lest the shadows claim them as well. Villagers lit fires along the banks to keep the darkness at bay, but the strange figures persisted, slipping through the flickering flames like smoke. The boundary between the living and the dead, between the present and the ancient past, felt thinner than ever before. This haunting presence was a reminder that the drying Euphrates was more than a natural phenomenon. It was a doorway to something ancient and powerful, a crossing point where human history and the spiritual world collided. The shadows were not just echoes of what had been but guardians of what was still hidden, keepers of secrets that the river had refused to give up. Those shadows that lingered by the drying Euphrates told a story of mystery and warning, and those who saw them knew the river's true message was only beginning to be heard. The watchers in the shadows had chosen their time, and the world was forced to listen. As the Euphrates River's waters dwindled and the golden treasures beneath its cracked bed began to glint in the sun, a darker story emerged, one of disappearances and eerie phenomena that gripped the people living nearby with terror. Those who ventured too close to the drying river often vanished without a trace, swallowed not by water, but by something far more mysterious and unfathomable. Families whispered about loved ones who had gone searching for relics or answers and never returned. Villagers spoke in fearful tones of shadows that moved independently of any person, cold breezes that came without wind, and strange lights flickering in the dead of night. Travelers who dared to cross the exposed riverbed told chilling tales. Some reported hearing whispers carried on the wind, soft voices calling their names, beckoning them deeper into the barren sands. Others spoke of sudden, overwhelming dizziness, as if the very air was thickening, choking the breath from their lungs. And then there were those who swore they saw figures, ghostly, fleeting, standing just beyond the edge of vision, watching silently, waiting. These apparitions seemed neither hostile nor welcoming, but their presence was enough to send a shiver down the spine of even the bravest souls. The disappearances were the most unsettling. Entire groups who went out to explore the golden fragments or investigate the strange happenings simply vanished. Search parties returned empty-handed, finding no sign of struggle, no footprints leading away, just the eerie silence of the dried riverbed. Stories circulated that the river was claiming those who dared to uncover its secrets, that the exposed sands were a trap, a threshold between this world and another realm where time and reality twisted and warped. Even the kings and priests, who had long held sway over their lands and commanded armies, were powerless against this creeping mystery. They sent their finest scouts and magicians, hoping to understand what was happening or to bring back those lost. Many returned shaken, speaking of visions and sensations too strange to explain, visions of ancient battles replaying in the sand, whispers of long-dead voices urging caution, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. The people lived in growing fear. The river that once promised life was now a source of dread. Nights grew darker and colder near its banks, and the wind carried a sorrowful wail that some claimed was the river itself mourning its own demise. Children were kept inside, and elders told stories to warn the young not to stray near the drying waters. The gold that glittered so brightly was no longer a blessing but a curse, a lure that brought ruin to those who sought it. Scientists and scholars from distant lands eventually arrived, drawn by the tales of the drying river and its mysterious powers. Yet, even with their instruments and knowledge, they found themselves confounded. The disappearances defied logic. The strange lights and sounds left no scientific explanation, and the golden relics remained an enigma. Some began to believe that what lay beneath the Euphrates was protected by forces beyond human understanding, ancient guardians who ensured the river's secrets would remain buried. The drying Euphrates had become a place where mystery and danger intertwined, a place where the boundary between the known and the unknown blurred. It was a reminder that some secrets, once disturbed, could never be safely uncovered, and some treasures came at a price far greater than gold. Those who vanished beneath the watchful eyes of the river became silent witnesses to a mystery that still holds its grip on the land today. The river's disappearance was a warning whispered through the ages. The river's disappearance was a warning whispered through the ages, urging caution and respect for the ancient forces still at play. For centuries, the drying of the Euphrates has been more than just a natural phenomenon. It has been a profound warning etched into the very fabric of ancient prophecy. Sacred texts, revered by generations and echoed through the words of prophets from Moses to Muhammad, speak of this event as a sign of momentous change, a divine message signaling upheaval unlike any the world has seen before. These holy scriptures warn that when the Euphrates withdraws its life-giving waters, it will expose not only treasures hidden for millennia, but also awaken forces that could reshape destiny itself. The prophets spoke of the river as a boundary between worlds, a sacred divide between peace and chaos, order and destruction. The drying of the Euphrates was portrayed not as mere drought, but as a deliberate act of divine will, a cosmic alarm bell ringing through time. The texts describe how the river's retreat would unveil the gold of the earth, a symbol of both promise and peril, heralding a final test for humanity, a moment to reckon with the balance between faith, power, and the consequences of human actions. Kings and priests throughout history understood this deeply. They knew the drying river was a harbinger of change so profound that entire empires could rise or fall in its wake. This was not a simple environmental shift, but a message from the divine, a call for humanity to reflect, repent, and prepare. The prophets warned that ignoring these signs would lead to turmoil, wars, famine, and spiritual darkness that could swallow whole nations. Generations of priests have kept vigil by the river's banks, interpreting each shift in the water's flow as a chapter in this unfolding prophecy. Their rituals, prayers, and sacrifices sought to appease the divine forces, hoping to delay or soften the impact of what was to come. But the more the Euphrates receded, the more intense their fear grew. They saw in the drying river the writing of fate, a warning that the delicate balance maintained for centuries was unraveling. The gold revealed by the drying waters was never seen as mere treasure. It was sacred, imbued with meaning and power, a tangible link between the divine and mortal worlds. Its appearance was a sign that the old order was cracking, that the world was on the cusp of transformation. It was as if the river was exposing the hidden truths beneath the surface of history, and demanding that humanity face what it had long ignored. In the modern era, as the Euphrates dries once again, these ancient warnings echo louder than ever. Scientists and politicians may speak of climate change and water management, but the whispers of prophecy remind us of something deeper, an ancient reckoning that transcends science, touching on faith, destiny, and the unseen forces shaping our future. The drying river asks more than where the water has gone. It asks whether humanity is ready to face the consequences written in sacred texts and mirrored in the golden sands. The prophet's words linger in the wind along the barren banks, a call to remember, to watch, and to understand that the drying Euphrates is no ordinary drought, but a sign of something far greater. It is a reminder that history is alive, that the past and future are entwined, and that the choices made today will echo through eternity. This warning, carved in scripture and stone, beckons humanity to heed the signs before the river's secrets are lost forever. Centuries have passed since the first golden flecks emerged from the drying bed of the Euphrates, yet the river's mysteries continue to ripple through time, casting long shadows over the present day. Modern discoveries, fueled by advances in archaeology and technology, have breathed new life into this ancient story, reigniting both fascination and fear. As scientists uncover more relics and pieces of the past buried beneath the river's cracked skin, they find echoes of the same events described in sacred texts and whispered in legend. The connection between what once was and what is now feels almost eerie, as if the river's ancient voice is speaking again, warning a world that has changed but still remains tethered to its roots. In recent years, satellite images and ground surveys reveal the alarming rate at which the Euphrates is drying. The once mighty river that sustained empires is shrinking rapidly, exposing more of its hidden secrets and, with them, new questions and new fears. Local communities, long reliant on the river for survival, watch in helpless silence as the waters recede. Their stories are filled with a sense of loss, not just of water, but of identity, history, and something spiritual they cannot fully explain. The drying river is not just a physical crisis. It's a haunting echo of a prophecy unfolding before their eyes. At the heart of this unfolding mystery is the gold, the ancient relics that have been uncovered by those daring enough to explore the exposed riverbed. These treasures, once symbols of divine favor and power, now feel like keys to a puzzle humanity is only beginning to understand. Each artifact holds a story, a fragment of an ancient world waiting to be pieced together, revealing secrets of civilizations long gone, but never forgotten. But alongside the excitement of discovery is a deep unease. The river's drying seems to stir something ancient and restless, a force that once again challenges human curiosity and ambition. Scientists are puzzled by the rapid disappearance of the Euphrates, attributing it to climate change, dam constructions, and unsustainable water use. Yet, the ancient warnings etched in holy scriptures linger in the background, suggesting this environmental crisis is more than just a modern problem. It's part of a cycle far older and far more profound. The drying river becomes a living metaphor for the fragility of human existence and the consequences of ignoring the balance between nature and destiny. The mystery that once belonged to kings and priests now captivates the world. Documentaries, books, and research projects try to unravel the story, but the deeper they dig, the more questions arise. What powers guard these golden relics? What will be revealed when the last drop of water fades? Will humanity heed the ancient warnings, or be doomed to repeat history's darkest chapters? As the Euphrates continues to shrink, it carries with it the weight of history and prophecy, reminding us that the past is never truly gone. It is always waiting beneath the surface, ready to return in the most unexpected ways. The river's secrets are still unfolding, and the world watches, caught between awe and fear, eager to discover what lies hidden in the sands of time. Centuries have passed since the first golden flecks emerged from the drying bed of the Euphrates, Yet the river's mysteries continue to ripple through time, casting long shadows over the present day. Modern discoveries, fueled by advances in archaeology and technology, have breathed new life into this ancient story, reigniting both fascination and fear. As scientists uncover more relics and pieces of the past buried beneath the river's cracked skin, they find echoes of the same events described in sacred texts and whispered in legend. The connection between what once was and what is now feels almost eerie, as if the river's ancient voice is speaking again, warning a world that has changed but still remains tethered to its roots. In recent years, satellite images and ground surveys reveal the alarming rate at which the Euphrates is drying. The once mighty river that sustained empires is shrinking rapidly, exposing more of its hidden secrets and, with them, new questions and new fears. Local communities, long reliant on the river for survival, watch in helpless silence as the waters recede. Their stories are filled with a sense of loss, not just of water, but of identity, history, and something spiritual they cannot fully explain. The drying river is not just a physical crisis. It's a haunting echo of a prophecy unfolding before their eyes. At the heart of this unfolding mystery is the gold, the ancient relics that have been uncovered by those daring enough to explore the exposed riverbed. These treasures, once symbols of divine favor and power, now feel like keys to a puzzle humanity is only beginning to understand. Each artifact holds a story, a fragment of an ancient world waiting to be pieced together, revealing secrets of civilizations long gone, but never forgotten. But alongside the excitement of discovery is a deep unease. The river's drying seems to stir something ancient and restless, a force that once again challenges human curiosity and ambition. Scientists are puzzled by the rapid disappearance of the Euphrates, attributing it to climate change, dam constructions, and unsustainable water use. Yet, the ancient warnings etched in holy scriptures linger in the background, suggesting this environmental crisis is more than just a modern problem. It's part of a cycle far older and far more profound. The drying river becomes a living metaphor for the fragility of human existence and the consequences of ignoring the balance between nature and destiny. The mystery that once belonged to kings and priests now captivates the world. Documentaries, books, and research projects try to unravel the story, but the deeper they dig, the more questions arise. What powers guard these golden relics? What will be revealed when the last drop of water fades? Will humanity heed the ancient warnings, or be doomed to repeat history's darkest chapters? As the Euphrates continues to shrink, it carries with it the weight of history and prophecy, reminding us that the past is never truly gone. It is always waiting beneath the surface, ready to return in the most unexpected ways. The river's secrets are still unfolding, and the world watches, caught between awe and fear, eager to discover what lies hidden in the sands of time. This ancient river, with its golden secrets and haunting mysteries, is a timeless reminder that some stories refuse to be forgotten, and some warnings must never be ignored.